Dolphin. I am the Tamarack teaching professor in geoscience, in the geoscience department. I come with a degree in geology and in teaching geology. I taught ninth grade earth science for 13 years and then went back to school to get a PhD in science education. And so those are my academic credentials. I grew up in central New York and always wanted to be a geologist. And so I went to Binghamton University, which is very close to my hometown, and got my bachelor's in geology, and then went to Johns Hopkins University for a master's degree in geology. And then I decided I had enough academics, so I went out and worked in the world for a while as a groundwater consultant for an engineering company in New Jersey. And I did that for about 4 years, and then became sort of disenchanted with the industry scene. So I went back to school and got a degree in teaching geology and began teaching ninth grade earth science in my alma mater, actually, with my former ninth grade science teacher and my former 8th grade science teacher. And that was a great deal of fun. But during that time that I was teaching, I became very interested in how students learn. And so I started to spend a lot of time reading the psychology literature and education literature, and became very passionate about it. And then I gave up my job as a teacher, went back to school to get my PhD at Syracuse University in science education. As I was finishing up that degree, I was shown an advertisement for this job here, the Tamarack teaching professorship, so I applied and interviewed, and they really, really liked me. So here I am. I'm currently teaching Geology 209, which is the introductory geology for non-science majors, and Science 311, which is a science writing course. But I've also taught Geology 201, introductory for science majors, and Geology 202, which is principles, applications of geoscience. I was really interested in how students learn, and so I began reading a lot of the literature in teaching and learning, and decided that the best way to explore this idea was to get a PhD and then work at the university level, where I could actively conduct research in student learning and convert that learning into better teaching. My dream job is this very job. I have the kind of freedom that I need, that I didn't get in my industry job, and it allows me to do teaching, which I love, and it also allows me to do the research that I love, and I get to interact with students and also interact with other faculty. So it's really, it really is a great job. I would have to say that my biggest academic accomplishment was writing a textbook for the Geology 209 class that I teach. As I said, I like to teach from the historical and philosophical context of science, and no introductory geology textbook treats geology information that way, and so I found that it would be best if I just wrote the book and then could teach it the way that I want to teach it. So I spent a summer a couple of years ago, wrote a book, and actually had someone interested enough in publishing it, and so now use it. But it's probably, aside from my family, it's the thing I'm most proud of. I was probably what most people would consider to be a pretty boring student. I studied very hard. I was a very good memorizer, something that I dissuade my current students from being, because no one ever taught me the importance of being able to, say, synthesize knowledge rather than to just memorize it and regurgitate it on a test. So I was a very good student in terms of getting good grades, but I didn't do a lot of thinking. But at the same time, I showed up for class every single day, and I think my professors liked me. Probably my worst pet peeve within the context of students is students asking for one more tenth of a point so that they can move up a grade. Yeah, the kind of groveling for points is just irritating, I suppose. I don't like it. Well, science is something that I do almost all of the time, which is one of the things that I found when I got my PhD in education. But when I'm not actively thinking about thinking, I have two daughters that are twins, and they're about 4, and they take up just about every other ounce of time that I have. I'm not sure if it's hidden, but it's one of the things that I like doing when I'm out, especially in the mountains, is taking photographs. I at one point had dreamed of being a National Geographic photographer, but that never came true. So it wasn't exactly crazy, but it was probably the most daring thing. So after I graduated from Johns Hopkins and had school from kindergarten through a master's degree, I was ready for a break, and so I got on an airplane and I flew to Australia for 6 months, and during that time I went camping on my own and got lost. And so eventually I made it. I did live. It was good. But I had caused a lot of strife from the park rangers who thought that maybe I had died. And so it was, it's something that I like to talk about and laugh, only because it happened 30 years ago now. But it wasn't so much fun at the time. I don't have any pets currently. We've always had a dog growing up, and I think I would like to have a dog, but I also know that you can't do any traveling if you have a dog unless you got someone who can take care of them. And cats are somewhat autonomous, but I really can't stand cats, so there will be no cats. I would have to say that I'm a big fan of science fiction fantasy films. So Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, The Matrix was awesome, except for the final film. And I really enjoyed Watership Down as well, because I like that as a book too. I would have to say, I don't know if you consider pizza to be junk food, but that I was always told that pizza was junk food, but I love pizza. And the unfortunate thing about moving to Calgary is that, having grown up in central New York, where pizza is kind of like almost direct from Italy, I haven't been able to really find a place that replicates that in Calgary. And so whenever I go back to the United States, which is a couple times a year, that is my one goal is to find a good place that gives New York style pizza, and get my fill, so when I come back I'm not craving it so much. I would have to say that the things that I can't live without is really, this job has afforded me the freedom to explore the questions that I'm very interested in, and that freedom is very dear to me, and I would have a very difficult time living a happy life without that. And then my family would be the other thing. My wife, who's wonderful, who is currently taking care of our 4-year-old twins, and those two who really just keep me young. And I have a 16-year-old daughter, May, who is just turning into a fine young woman in her own right. I would have to say that those are probably the most important things in my life. I've always tried to get between 7 and 8 hours of sleep. Now, since the twins have been born, that's a bit less, but I'm working back to about probably averaging 7.5 hours anyways. I can't function much less than that on a regular basis. I think the most important thing that I would like students to understand after they leave any of my classes is not the science so much, but that this time in university is a very special time for most. You've got very little responsibility except to yourself, and to take that time to actually work on learning and to extend yourself into areas that are maybe not so comfortable. Take some academic challenges, take a course that you never would consider yourself taking in the past, because at this time the ability to learn and to learn how to learn is crucial for being a good citizen. And it becomes much more difficult when you get a family and get a house and have to have regular payments that you have to make, and your days are scheduled completely. So just understanding that memorizing and test taking is not what university is about, but it's really about exploring your freedom to learn and take advantage of it as much as possible. My advice for students, and especially for those who want to do research, is to be inquisitive about everything. Just ask lots of questions and try to figure them out, or ask for help. Go to places. It is the questioning nature of humans, I think, that has allowed us to advance to what we have today, and really downplay the role of memorizing stuff for the freedom of learning. You know, just having an open mind and allowing your mind to go in places where you wouldn't normally think that it should go.